Hello, this is a video about just
About
okay. So here's what we're going to do is I've got a little description of this, and I'm going to try to make it reasonably structured. Okay, so the final part of this commodity price analysis that I want to explain to you is using a list box versus a combo box. This is really the primary reason I suggested using one of these list boxes. Oops, that's a combo box, of course. We're going to use this one, and then we're going to see how difficult kind of it is to copy the list box from one place to another. And we'll define the range name used in the list box. We'll make a macro that clears the list box. We'll use a choose and if statement just for getting index numbers associated with selections. And finally, we'll make a really flexible X scale. Now, when we do all of this, again, what we'll be able to do is see a graph that has either raw values, and in this case, let's take natural gas, in different places. We'll set the maximum to be appropriate, or we can take an index value, or we can get the percent changes. We can clear the list, or we can, then if I just want to compare oil with cocoa and tea, now if I do that, of course the scales might be very different, so I really wouldn't want to do that. So we could compare an index value and do all of this. This is what that list box allows you to really do. So let's just see this. Now, rather than kind of working through the macro with you and typing things in and getting them all long, here's what I did. I said, well, the first thing is, this is a large spreadsheet, so we're gonna record, number one, we'll record the original calculation state, and then we'll set calc to manual. And the reason we do that is because it can take a long time to reset and we kind of do all the graphs. This is the key, and the key to do this is when you make the list box, you just right click and put a macro, and you just confine this, find the list box number by clicking on and box and graph. Okay, so now I should tell you that you see it says list box 4 up here. When you do this, and when you first make the list box, if you change any little thing, it won't show the numbers. It's a whole lot more sensitive than combo boxes and some of the other things. Okay, let's take the T away, add soybean meal, just to show you kind of how it all works. Okay. Now, once we have the list box, then we need, we're going to clear the range name for output, and that's in history forecast sheet. Okay, and then we get the total number of items in the list, and we work through it, and we select find selected items, copy to the range. Okay, and then finally this is kind of key, I think, you need to get off of the list box and finally reset the calculation. So now once you've done this, I hope you can do what I would do, is just take one of your versions and copy it. Now a couple of other things we have in the thing are, if we want to clear out the list, which you might often want to do, and take, just again start over and take two different values. You have to set the maximum again, and then you can just restart that. To clear the list is just almost the identical macro, and what you do is you just again reset the calculation to manual. You have to make sure and use the right number for the list box, and then we're going to select each items, the selected, make them all false, and then also clear out the named range you made. Okay, I don't need this one, I hope, anymore. I was having a big problem when I did this. Okay, and so let's just make sure it still works, and let's get coffee in two different places and set the maximum. Now the maximum again is set almost exactly the same way I showed you in an earlier video. It's just a macro that simply finds the maximum value. Here it is, and just sets the range to the maximum. Okay, now the way this all works is you go to the history and the forecast sheet, and where is our maximum here is, this is a max with the NA. We have a max NA, which means that we ignore the NA in computing the maximum, and it rounds it up to the nearest integer. That's what the comma 0 does. And then this is our range that we're going to forecast, not forecast, or display, and we just have a little test whether the range is the identified range between, in this case, 1961 and 2025. It's just got a true false and an if statement with the NA, and you recall the NA technique allows you to make the flexible X range. So that's, I think, really most of the thing. So if we want to start the graph much later on, we can start it. It's irritating that the labels move over to the left instead of the right, but I can't do anything about that. Okay, maybe you can. And then we have the flexible X range as well as the flexible number on the graph. Okay. Finally, if we talk for a minute about this index, it's a little bit tricky to set an index correctly. You know what I? Okay. Here's where I stopped. If we change the index number, you notice how it says index value. Notice that there's one place. Look at this. Now let's put the index to just the forecasted year, perhaps. There's always one place, 1 year, where everything is 1. That's what I was looking for. So we change it to 2007. So again, if we change it to just the last forecast year, there it is, then we can see kind of how, from the current last value, how the indexes are changing. Now to do that, I'm going to just go back and show you a little bit about all of this. So if you recall, we had an earlier video that just took all of the code numbers from the forecast. This was the kind of basic code without any. And this was just the historic numbers, the real numbers. This was the nominal forecast. And this was the real forecast. Okay, now we took those and we basically said they're just an if test. Well, we read in all the data. I'm afraid to do this because we read in all the data, used the match and the index to put the history and then the forecast together. We used the conditional formatting, which I love, but somebody says that makes Excel a little unstable. I'd probably agree with them. Then we get the raw values easily from those raw values, put a percent change in. All these NAs are exactly what was explained in the list box. So we, look and see if it's a number, and then take that. We find the whether it's natural gas or what have you, and then we put the we match those values up. Excuse me. And this says, well, we match this. Excuse me. We match these things that come from the list box. This right here. This comes from the list box. This should be named list. Excuse me. This is directly from the list box, and then you just match this against the name on the side, and you're able to use the index to find all the numbers. Then you take the percent change. Now the key thing here is I hate this. I had to do a nested if, but I had to say, well, if we were going to use a code number of 1, 2, or 3. 1 if it's less than the index. 3 if it's exactly the index, when the index is exactly 1, 2 if it's greater than the index. And then I just use the choose command and say, well, first of all, if it's 1, that we just choose the number 1. Okay, if it's, and that was, I guess, number 3. If it's 2, which is less than, you go backwards 1, and you take the current value divided by the next value. If it's greater than, you go back 1 and take the current value divided by the previous value. So that's how you can kind of make a little really flexible index. You can look at all of this. So this file I will put on the website. Oops, I don't have the website here, excuse me. I have it here as well. Okay, I guess you can see where it is. I'm going to put it in 2 places. I'm going to put it in the dynamic graphs with the offset. I should put offset in the list box if I change this. And then I'm also going to put it in automatically downloading from the internet, since really it's one of the primary files there. Okay, so that's where I'll put this. Right now I have some futures data and I have it here. I think it's an important file, and I'll put it right at the top. Alright, so that's where the file is, and that's the end of this video.